Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with another round of the scariest horror stories from our community. And this one comes from a user. Horror. I saw a reflection in the window, but not mine. I was around 14 or 15 years old at the time. Growing up in southern Thailand, my family had an old wooden house that was over 50 years old. It was built by my grandfather. The house was surrounded by tall trees, so tall that even if you stood on your tiptoes and stretched your arms out, you still couldn't reach the lowest branch. There were also two large windows in the living room that reached all the way to the floor and were covered by a sheer white curtain. One day, my father decided he wanted to repair the window frames, so he asked me to stay home from school and help him. At first, everything went well. He applied a coat of primer to the windows and then waited for it to dry before painting them white. But after we finished, something strange happened. Before I go on, let me describe what the windows looked like. They were made of small panes of glass separated by thick wooden frames. Each pane was about the size of a piece of paper. As I was washing the right window, my father worked on the left. After finishing, we both stepped back to admire our work. Suddenly, I saw a shadow in the reflection of the window. At first, I assumed it was my dad because I didn't turn around to look. But when I did, I saw that he was standing right next to me. I was shocked because I had only seen his back a second ago. "Did you see that?" I asked him. He looked puzzled and replied, "See what? How can I have seen anything?" "You know, I hate it when you sneak up on me like that." "You were just there in the window," I said. "What are you talking about?" "Haven't moved from this spot since you started washing the window," he said. My heart started to race. I was sure I had seen a man in the reflection, but now it seemed like my dad was trying to ignore the fact that something weird had happened, so I pointed to the window again. "Look," I said, "there he is." But when he turned to look, there was no one there. Of course, he told me I was making things up. Perhaps I really had only seen a glimpse of him before he started painting, but I knew I had not. This happened again 3 times. Every time I pointed out the reflection, he would investigate and say, "There's nothing there," before going back to his work. The more he acted like this, the more frightened I became. When I finally mustered up enough courage to speak, he would only laugh at me. I could feel myself getting upset, so I decided to stop washing the window and walk away. Just as I was about to do so, I turned to my father and asked him to close his eyes for a moment. After he did, I walked to the window and started to wash it again. When I was done, I gently pulled the curtain aside and stared at the reflection. To my surprise, the shadow was gone. Then I heard my father clear his throat and ask, "Are you still seeing that thing?" I lied and said no, because I was scared he might start screaming and attracting unwanted attention. I continued washing the window without speaking until my father finished painting. Then I dried the window with a towel and stepped back. "Okay, let's take a break," he said. "You go sit down for a while and I'll go get us some lunch." I nodded and sat down. But every time I glanced at the window, I saw that shadow again. Of course, my father didn't see it. He believed I was simply staring at the reflection of myself washing the window. When he came back with food, he noticed that I hadn't touched my portion. "Why aren't you eating?" he asked. I replied, "I don't want any." "Thank you. That's strange. You usually eat a lot." He must have thought I was just tired from helping him fix the window, because he didn't ask any more questions. After I finished the rest of my schoolwork, I ran to the bathroom to wash my face and hands. Then I quickly returned to the window to see that shadow again. But that time it was different. That figure wasn't washing the window anymore. Instead, it was sitting on the edge of the window frame and facing me. I stared back at it in disbelief, wondering who this person was. Was it a ghost or someone who had snuck into our house? Maybe it was someone watching us from outside, but that didn't make any sense either. How could someone stand in the middle of nowhere and stare directly at me? I was terrified. After what felt like an eternity, the figure slowly rose from the window frame and disappeared. A few seconds later, I heard my father shout my name. "Quickly come help me." I rushed to the living room to find him standing beside the window with a scared expression on his face. "Come look at this," he said, pointing to the reflection. I saw a pair of pants lying on the floor where they had not been before. We looked at each other in shock, unsure of what to do next. It was obvious that those pants had not been there before, and we both knew that whatever was in those pants was dead. Before we could react, the pants started moving on their own, and a pale hand reached out from them. My father screamed and fell to the floor. I froze in fear, unable to move or speak. Then the pants started sliding off the window frame and fell onto the ground. From inside the pants, a leg emerged, followed by a torso. A man crawled out of the window and stood in front of us. His entire body was covered in blood. My father shouted again, and I think I fainted. The next thing I remember is waking up on a hospital bed with a doctor standing over me. "Good news, you're alive," he said. I asked him what happened, but he didn't answer. Instead, he told me that I needed to rest. When my parents arrived at the hospital, I learned that the police had found a dead body near our house. The description matched the man who had crawled out of the window, but they never identified the body because it was too decomposed. To this day, no one knows what happened to that man or why he tried to climb through our window. As for my father, he had to be treated for shock and anxiety after witnessing such a traumatic event. Now, whenever I close my eyes, I can still see that man crawling out of the window. I hope wherever he has found peace. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and joining our community. Your support allows us to keep bringing you terrifying tales from around the world. Also check out our podcast, where we publish the creepiest pastas directly from our community. If you want to submit your own story, visit our website for guidelines and instructions. Until next time, sleep tight and don't look in the window.